For centuries, naval power was measured by the size of guns, the thickness of armor, and the dominance of battleships. Whoever possessed the largest and most heavily armed fleet controlled the seas. But at the dawn of the 20th century, a fragile and seemingly unreliable invention began to challenge this long-standing belief. That invention was the airplane. When the first aircraft appeared in the early 1900s, few naval commanders believed they could play a meaningful role in warfare at sea. Early airplanes had limited range, low payload capacity, and were extremely vulnerable to weather and mechanical failure. Yet one capability immediately captured military attention: the ability to see far beyond the horizon. From the sky, aircraft could spot enemy ships long before naval guns could reach them, opening an entirely new dimension of warfare. In the earliest stage, naval aviation relied primarily on seaplanes. These aircraft could take off and land on water, allowing ships to carry them using cranes for reconnaissance missions. However, this method quickly revealed serious limitations. Rough seas, poor weather, and the slow recovery process made operations dangerous and inefficient. As a result, a more radical idea began to take shape: launching aircraft directly from a ship's deck. In 1910, American pilot Eugene Ely made history by successfully taking off from a temporary wooden platform built on a U.S. Navy warship. Shortly afterward, he became the first person to land an aircraft on a ship using a primitive arresting system. These experiments proved that aircraft could operate from ships at sea, laying the foundation for what would eventually become the aircraft carrier. During World War I, aircraft carriers were still in their infancy. The British Royal Navy took the lead by converting existing ships to carry aircraft, primarily for reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare. Although aircraft carriers did not yet play a decisive role in major naval battles, they clearly demonstrated the strategic value of controlling the air above the ocean. After World War I, naval powers began to invest seriously in aircraft carrier development. New ships were designed from the ground up to operate aircraft. Flight decks were extended, elevators and hangars were improved, and arresting gear became more reliable. Slowly but surely, the aircraft carrier evolved from a supporting vessel into an independent and powerful weapon of war. The true turning point came during World War II. The attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 fundamentally changed naval warfare. Japanese aircraft launched from carriers struck the U.S. Pacific Fleet with devastating effectiveness. In a matter of hours, the age of the battleship was effectively over. From that moment on, aircraft carriers became the centerpiece of modern naval strategy. Throughout the Pacific War, decisive battles such as Coral Sea and Midway were fought not by ships firing at each other, but by aircraft launched from carriers hundreds of kilometers away. Fleets could now destroy one another without ever coming into direct visual contact. The true power of an aircraft carrier lay not in the ship itself, but in the air wing it carried. Following World War II, aircraft carriers continued to evolve during the Cold War. The introduction of jet aircraft required major design changes. Angled flight decks were developed to allow safer landings, while steam catapults made it possible to launch heavier and faster aircraft. These innovations dramatically increased operational efficiency and combat readiness. Another major breakthrough was the introduction of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Equipped with nuclear reactors, these ships could operate for years without refueling, giving them unmatched global reach. The United States emerged as the dominant carrier power, operating the largest and most advanced carrier fleet in the world. In modern conflicts, from the Korean War and Vietnam War to operations in the Middle East, aircraft carriers have served as floating air bases. They allow nations to project air power anywhere in the world without relying on land-based infrastructure. This capability provides immense strategic flexibility and political influence. Today, aircraft carriers are more than just military assets. They are symbols of national power and technological achievement. Countries such as the United States, China, the United Kingdom, and France place aircraft carriers at the center of their naval doctrine. At the same time, the future of aircraft carriers is being reshaped by unmanned aircraft, artificial intelligence, and new threats such as hypersonic missiles. From crude wooden decks in the early 20th century to massive nuclear-powered warships of today, the aircraft carrier has undergone a remarkable transformation. Its history reflects not only technological progress, but a fundamental shift in how wars at sea are fought. In the modern era, control of the oceans begins not on the water, but in the skies above it. As the 21st century unfolds, aircraft carriers remain at the center of global naval power, but their role is increasingly debated. Modern warfare has introduced new technologies and new threats, forcing naval strategists to constantly reassess the value and vulnerability of these massive warships. One of the greatest strengths of an aircraft carrier is its ability to project power without relying on foreign bases. In regions where political instability or limited infrastructure makes land-based operations difficult, a carrier strike group can arrive offshore and immediately conduct air operations. This capability has made aircraft carriers essential tools in crisis response, deterrence, and humanitarian assistance. Carrier-based aircraft now perform a wide range of missions, including air superiority, ground attack, electronic warfare, intelligence gathering, and early warning. Modern carriers operate as part of a complex network, supported by destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and supply ships. Together, they form a carrier strike group capable of defending itself against air, surface, and underwater threats. However, the rise of advanced anti-ship weapons has raised serious questions about carrier survivability. Long-range anti-ship missiles, stealth submarines, cyber warfare, and hypersonic weapons are designed specifically to target large naval assets. Critics argue that aircraft carriers are too expensive and too vulnerable in a high-intensity conflict against a near-peer adversary. In response, navies have adapted their doctrines. Aircraft carriers now rely heavily on layered defense systems, including advanced radar, missile interceptors, electronic countermeasures, and escort vessels. At the same time, carriers are operating aircraft with longer range, allowing them to strike targets while staying farther from hostile shores. Another major transformation is the growing role of unmanned systems. Unmanned aerial vehicles are increasingly integrated into carrier air wings, performing surveillance, refueling, and strike missions. These systems reduce risk to pilots and extend the operational reach of the carrier. In the future, unmanned aircraft may become the dominant component of naval aviation. Different nations have adopted different approaches to aircraft carrier development. The United States continues to operate large nuclear-powered supercarriers, emphasizing global power projection. China has rapidly expanded its carrier program, viewing carriers as symbols of national prestige and tools for regional influence. Meanwhile, countries like the United Kingdom, France, and India focus on versatile carriers designed for both combat operations and international missions. Despite ongoing debates, aircraft carriers have proven remarkably adaptable. Over more than a century, they have evolved alongside changes in technology, strategy, and geopolitics. Each time they were declared obsolete, they emerged transformed, incorporating new capabilities to meet new challenges. Looking ahead, the future of the aircraft carrier will likely be shaped by artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and network-centric warfare. Carriers may become command hubs for fleets of unmanned aircraft and surface vessels, coordinating operations across vast distances. Their role may shift from being solely strike platforms to becoming central nodes in a broader maritime battle network. In the end, the story of the aircraft carrier is not just a story of ships and planes. It is a story of adaptation, innovation, and the constant struggle to control the seas.